Hello and welcome to another Leadership Nugget. At a recent Lunch and Learn, we featured the president of Florida MGMA, and as we discussed the Lunch and Learn before we filmed it, we realized that we both had worked at Waffle House earlier in our careers. The more I thought about that, I realized there are some life lessons there that might be worth sharing. So there's this enlisted hospital corpsman in the Navy, works at a local hospital. He has a fiance, or he's trying to get someone to agree to marry him and become a fiance. But he lives in a trailer park, in a kind of a rundown trailer with some other corpsmen. He rides a motorcycle, and his fiance-to-be says, "No, we've got to clean some stuff up. Mostly, you've got to buy a house, get it furnished, got to get a car, and gosh, you really need to grow up a little bit." So this guy is plenty motivated to get this woman to agree to marry him, but he really doesn't have a clear path. He's not very highly paid. He doesn't have any savings in the bank, so he can't qualify for a loan on a house. And if he trades his motorcycle in, he's not going to get much of a deal for that, so he's not going to be able to buy a car. But as luck would have it, he sometimes goes to the Waffle House after his day shift. And he's there one day and he meets someone who's actually behind the counter cooking. And they strike up a conversation. Turns out that this person behind the counter cooking was the actual store manager. Someone had called in sick on the 311 shift and he had to cook. And we talked a little bit about what was going on with me, and he said, "You know what? I've got an opening on second shift right here at this Waffle House right beside the base. Why don't you consider coming to work for me?" On the surface, the job appeared to be pretty easy. You just kind of stand behind the counter, you cook some eggs and bacon and toast, and you make breakfast for people, essentially. Didn't seem like much of a problem at all. But the job was not exactly what it appeared to be from the other side of the counter. First of all, as you see in the picture, the person there is pulling tickets. Back then, there were no tickets. The waitresses would call out the orders, and the cook had to remember them, memorize the entire order. But it wasn't just that. The orders were called out in codes, and the codes represented how the plates would be presented, what would be the side items that would go with that particular thing. And at the very end, after I'd been doing third shift for a while, I got called in to do a day shift, and it got so busy, I completely lost my place. I had a lot of food on the grill, but I couldn't remember what went with what. And I had to call the manager out of the back to come and help me. Pretty humiliating. Another thing that wasn't immediately obvious up front was this actually was not the greatest place to work. First of all, it's hot. You're working over this hot grill, and the hood is pulling up all that heat, and you're surrounded by dangerous stuff, hot oils, the grill itself, hot, sharp knives, lots of things that can hurt you in the work area. And then on top of all that, you're on stage. Everything you do is right in front of the public. So you make a mistake, everybody knows it. So there's a lot of pressure involved. And by the way, there are no breaks. When it's busy and you're the only cook, you cook and cook and cook and cook until there are no more orders. Not the most fun place I ever worked. Something else that wasn't apparent when I took the job and started working was the second shift is not as busy as the first and the third shift. And if you think about Waffle House, that makes sense. People come in early for breakfast, and then sometimes after the bars close at night, a lot of people come in. But 3 o'clock in the afternoon, not much to do. 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, not much to do at Waffle House. So what I wasn't thinking about was on the second shift, often, especially back then, it was one cook and one waitress, and that was it. And the cook was not necessarily there to cook, except when a few orders came in. The cooks were there to clean. So the waitresses cleaned the front of the house. The cooks had to clean the back of the house, and that was the grill, Of course, the grill was cleaned all during the day, but then the hood. But most importantly and most physically demanding were the mats. These huge rubber mats that we stood on weighed a ton, and food would fall on them during the day, and so they had to be cleaned, and they did that on second shift. So we dragged these incredibly heavy mats out the back door and sprayed them off with a hose, shook them off good, dried them off, and brought them back into the store. So the issue is it was physically demanding, more so than what it looked like when you just watched a first shift cook. And again, it's hot back there. So takeaways from that whole experience. First of all, I think it's pretty important that you know what job it is you're getting into. So ask the right questions, and I'm not talking about ask how much money you can make. Ask what will be expected of you and what you can do to add value to that particular job. You got to make sure that you're up to it. So once you know what the job requires, are you intellectually and physically capable of performing that job? As far as being a cook in the Waffle House, I was neither. I basically struggled with both of those areas of the work. I also learned if you get behind or you get lost, ask for help. Don't wait too long. By the time I had asked the manager to come out and help me, the grill was a mess. He had to get the waitresses to call out all of their orders again, and he had to start almost from scratch. So don't be afraid to ask for help. It's not a sign of weakness. It's a sign of integrity that you care about the work of the organization more than your own image. And I'll tell you, being humbled at work is not always a bad thing. Sometimes we need that. So if you do get humbled, take it in stride, learn from it, and go back and be better from there on out. And then the last thing I would say is along the way, we all end up having to do some tough jobs if we want to get what we want. So this whole experience was 45 years ago. I got what I was hoping for, and I would never look back on that experience as anything but completely positive. So as always, if you enjoyed this, come on over to School of Global Health Management and Informatics at UCF and check out some more of these and see if any of those make sense to you. Take care. Be safe.